Betsy, and this is Nicole. And we are back today with Eco-Science. Actually, I might have Nicole hit the lights off for us for this first part, because I really want you guys to see this cool presentation. We have some really cool things to show you guys today. Here we go. Let's try this. We're going to try a little autofocus. Actually, let's try both lights off for a minute, because I think usually it will come in too. There it goes. Auto image, my best friend there. Friends, it is so good to see you guys. We're going to talk about an interesting creature today. Who remembers what we did the last time Eco came to your classroom? What did we do?
Those cards.
Those cards. We learned about animal life cycles, right? And we learned that all life cycles start with, do you remember? Birth. And then they have growth. Yeah, and then they have reproduction. And then they have death, right? And we kind of compared juveniles and adults. Now we're going to do that a little bit today as well, but we're doing it with a very different kind of creature. I'm going to write this word down here. It's, you guys say it, macro-invertebrate. Nice.
I do.
Whoa, look, I have to bend like way over to even write the word because it's such a big word. So let's start, because this is such a big scientific vocabulary word. Let's start. How many parts does this word have? Show me with your fingers. 2 parts. This is a compound word, my friends. And the first part, macro, my question for you is, what does that mean? What does that word macro mean to you? What do you think about that? Now, I might put it to you this way. Have you heard the word micro?
Yes.
What does micro mean to you? Yeah. Really mini, really small, right? Like if you were looking at something through a microscope, it would be so small that you couldn't see it really with your bare eye, right? So you look through the microscope. So if micro means so small you can't see it with your bare eye, what do you think macro might mean? Turn and tell your neighbor what you think macro means. Huge! Clap once if you're ready. You're absolutely right. I heard you saying it. Macro means a little bigger than micro. It means big enough to see with your eye. So the animals we're going to look at today, you can see them with your bare eye. But here's the deal. Invertebrate. Now, raise your hand if you have heard of the word vertebra. Raise your hand. You don't even have to know what it means, but maybe you've heard the word vertebra before. Everyone in this classroom has vertebra in their bodies. If you know where your vertebrae are, touch them. See where I'm touching? Where am I touching? My spine. My backbone is made of vertebra. So if vertebra means backbone, what do you think an invertebrate is? If a vertebrate is something that has a backbone, what do you think an invertebrate might be? Something without no backbone. So the animals we're going to look at are macro-invertebrates. Can you say macro-invertebrate?
Macro-invertebrate.
Are they big enough to see with your eye?
Yes.
Do they have backbones?
No.
Good, okay. Now, but if you don't have a backbone, you still need a skeleton. So let's picture this. If you don't have bones in your body, you'd be flapping around like a worm, right? Because they don't have bones in their bodies. But the things that we look at have a type of skeleton. It's just a skeleton that's on the outside. Does anyone remember the word for a skeleton that's on the outside of your body? If you know it, say it 3, 2, 1.
Exoskeleton.
Right. Exoskeleton. I don't know if I spelled that right. Skeleton. There we go. Okay, exoskeleton. There we go, friends. There it is. So, take a look at this picture that I have up here on the board for a moment. Do you see these little critters? They're a little hard to see here. You're going to see them better in a minute. Okay, now the place where we're going to find these macroinvertebrates is in this type of a habitat. In this type of a habitat. What kind of habitat is that?
Underwater.
So I see water.
Before
And I'm actually, the way this artist drew this cool illustration is they sort of chopped the stream right there so you can see into the water. And that's exactly what we're going to be investigating. We are going to be investigating a stream or river habitat. A stream or river you can find right here in Oregon. And most people don't know that if you were to go around and cruise around in a stream, there's a whole secret world in there.
Not really secret.
Well, it's kind of secret though, because do we spend a lot of time hanging out in the bottom of streams?
No.
Why?
Because we can't breathe.
Because we can't breathe in streams. We need to breathe oxygen from the air, not from the water. So a lot of us maybe have never seen some of the creatures we're going to look at today. Okay, and you know what's a true fact? Many adults who live right here in Oregon don't even know about these things. So you guys can tell your parents about it. Go home, quiz them, see if they know about macroinvertebrates. I will bet you that they don't know about a lot of these creatures we're about to learn about. So let's take a look at this picture. Do you notice all the little images here? Yeah. These are some of the creatures we're going to talk about today. And you notice how the way this artist drew this picture I love, because they're showing us a close-up of the macroinvertebrate, and then they're drawing a line to the part of the stream that you are likely to find a macroinvertebrate. So like, talk to me about this part of the stream. What do you find in that part of the stream? What are these little things? Rocks. That's the rocky part, right? Is it deep or shallow?
Shallow.
Okay. What about this part of the stream? What's growing up out of the water there? Grass, water plants, right? Is it deep or shallow?
Shallow.
Relatively shallow. And then down in here, is that the deep part? Okay. And who do you have here?
Fish.
You have a fish. Guess why we have a fish in this picture?
It eats the bugs.
They are the main predator of macroinvertebrates. They're not the only predator, but they are the main predator of macroinvertebrates. Who can think of a famous type of fish that lives in streams around here? Starts with an S if you know it. Say 3, 2, 1.
Salmon!
Salmon. So macroinvertebrates are really important to salmon because that's what salmon live on when they're young fish before they go out to the ocean. Okay, are you ready for your first macro?
Yes.
Okay, let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at it. If you, can you read this with me? Water strider.
We learned about these.
Thumbs up if you have learned about them before. Hands up if you've seen them before. What part of the stream do water striders like to hang out in?
Shallow.
They like to hang out in the top. Something that's crazy is they actually have wings. It's a little hard to see, but they can do little flights. So they actually have wings, but they're really cool. They hang out on the top of the water, and they have a cool adaptation. And adaptation, what does that mean? Like to adapt to something. What does that mean? That's a pretty fancy.
Like when you jump in the water?
What do you think? Okay, that's okay. What do you think adaptation means? Yeah.
This is about the water striders. I have some of my
Hold that thought for stories, because I really need to get to this idea of adaptation, because we're going to talk about it with each bug today. Yeah.
I think what adaptation means is they can stay on.
Okay, so being able to stay on top of the water is an adaptation. An adaptation simply means the way that something has changed to be able to survive better in its environment. So humans have adapted. Scientists theorize that we used to walk on all fours. We've adapted to actually stand up. That helped us in different ways. That's a longer story. But we change over time, right? Like a woolly, furry bear has adapted to have a really, really thick coat so that what happens in the winter?
So they can stay warm.
So it can stay warm. So animals and all different creatures adapt in different ways. Even plants adapt in different ways. So the water strider is adapted, it's changed over time to be able to walk around and scoot around on the water. Now this is really cool because water striders actually like to eat other bugs. They hunt. They shoot around on the water top and they hunt little bugs.
And the fish eat them.
So, and then sometimes the fish eat them, or maybe a bird would eat them sometimes too. But yeah, so that's a cool adaptation. Now let's take a look. So we know they hang out on the top of the water. Let's take a look at this. What's that called?
Water penny.
Now the water penny is an interesting little creature. What's it sitting on right here? It's actually somebody's finger. So show me with your hand, how big do you think a water penny is? It's pretty tiny. Do they look a little bit like a suction cup?
Yeah. They look like a...
Guess what? Their bodies literally suction onto rocks, and then they scrape this green stuff off of the rocks to eat it. Algae. They scrape algae. They're algae eaters. But I have a shocking fact about a water penny. It does not stay in this form its entire life. This is the nymph form of this animal, meaning the baby form of a beetle. The water penny actually will go through metamorphosis and change into a beetle and live on land as an adult. So a lot of the animals we see today are just spending their baby phase, their juvenile phase, in the water, and then they change like a frog does, like a butterfly. Well, butterflies don't live in the water, but they do go through metamorphosis, right? Yeah.
A mosquito.
Mosquitoes, same story. Mosquitoes spend their larval form, their baby form, in the water, and then they hatch out. They're ready to suck our blood, right? Okay. All right, the water penny.
It's like a vampire.
Clap once if you're ready for the next macro-invertebrate. Okay. Let's take a look at this. Ooh, I love this one, the water boatman. Water boatmen are really good at
Swimming.
What part of the stream do they like to live in? Yes, very good. Kind of like, they actually will cruise all around in here. They're so good at swimming that they can go in the faster moving parts of the stream. They can swim around. Now this water boatman is actually an herbivore. It eats things like plants, but some bugs that are related to them actually hunt other insects. And the water boatman has really cool, one set of its 6 legs is really cool. It has a special adaptation. What are those legs good at doing? Swimming. Yeah, they swim. You've seen one before? Cool, that's really lucky. Not everyone's seen a water boatman before. That's very lucky. You're hanging out in some cool places. That's very neat. So these little guys are so awesome because they're good at swimming. They also have wings, so they can do little like sort of little mini flights. They can go whoop, and then back into the water. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. Okay.
It's like a really miniature dolphin.
Yeah. Hang on, what's that one called?
Springtail.
Okay, now what's the springtail sitting on?
Penny.
I like to call that Abraham Lincoln's mustache right there. Right? Because Abraham Lincoln's on the penny right there. That looks like his mustache. Okay. Does the springtail have 6 legs?
No, way more. It's like a caterpillar. It has
Way more than 6 legs. I can't even really count them. There are many legs. Would you say more than 10?
Yeah.
Okay. Does the springtail look like some seafood you have seen before?
Yep. Yes. That's what I was gonna say. It looks like shrimp.
This is the cousin of a shrimp. Now, are streams freshwater or salty water?
I love fresh. Or sharks who live in it. I love fresh.
They're fresh, scientists. You're absolutely right. They're freshwater. In theory, you can drink out of them. They're not salty like the ocean. But do shrimp usually live in fresh or salty water? Salty water, right? Or brackish water that's like a combination of both. So these are like a cousin of a shrimp. They're a crustacean. And they're related to the shrimp, and they live in fresh water. Now, one thing they're really good at doing is springing around in the water. And that allows them to dance around and move around these little plants. What do you think they eat?
Algae.
They actually eat these water plants, like little water grasses, sedges, reeds, that kind of thing. And they'll actually eat dead stuff in the water. They'll eat dead plants. They'll eat dead animals. They are what we call a scavenger. They'll pretty much scavenge for anything they can eat. Show me with your fingers. Whoops. How big is the springtail? Little bitty. Little bitty. Okay. Very good. Ooh, this is interesting. So this is the stonefly nymph. What part of the stream does the stonefly nymph like to hang out in? Oh, interesting. Okay. So they hang out on the rocks. Now they have a cool adaptation. They have a little suction cup like thing on their belly, and that sticks them to the rocks, and they sit on the rocks and they go. What are they eating?
Algae.
Yeah, they are eating algae off of the rocks, just like the water penny was, right? Let's take a look. Do you think the stonefly stays a nymph its whole life?
No.
No. What's in that name? Yeah. In the name is the word fly. It's about to turn into a fly. Do you want to see what it looks like when it grows up?
Yeah.
Ew.
Now, this is interesting. Okay, so here's the stonefly nymph, and here's the stonefly adult. This is interesting. Let's take a look. Does it have a head? What's this? The thorax? Thorax. The thorax, what attaches to the thorax? The
Abdomen.
legs and the wings, right? And then what's that? Okay. And it has how many tails?
2.
How many does the adult have?
2.
Okay, so that's a trick for identifying a stonefly nymph or a stonefly adult. They have how many tails? Show me with your fingers. 2. Yeah, good. Okay, now they also have something else that's really interesting that helps them to breathe underwater. Do you see this fuzzy white stuff? It is not armpit hair.
Cool.
What is it? It's gills. Now, do they look like the gills of a fish, though?
No. Fish have big lines on them.
Right? And that's how the water like comes through, and they sort of filter out the oxygen in the water, and that's how things with the gills breathe. But these gills are fuzzy things. They're little fragile fuzzy things. And as the water rushes by the stonefly, the gills absorb oxygen from the water in those fragile little feathery places. Pretty cool, right? Another thing that I love about the stonefly, we know when it goes through metamorphosis, it develops wings, right? So it can fly around. It doesn't have wings as a nymph. No, but it has something called a wing pad. Check out these little triangles. Do you see those little triangles right there?
Yeah.
Those little triangles, what do you think is going to grow out of those during metamorphosis? Right, those are the wing pads. The wings grow out of there during metamorphosis. Okay, so some cool little clues to the stonefly. The stonefly only lives between like a few days and a month as an adult. So it spends most of its life as a nymph in the water. Let's take a look at our next friend. Ooh. This is an interesting one. This is a burrowing mayfly. Now we know the stoneflies suction cup themselves to the rocks, right? To eat algae. Pretty cool adaptation, having a suction cup on your belly, right? The burrowing mayfly is good at digging. Why would an animal want to dig down into the riverbed? What do you think?
To stay safe.
Thumbs up if you agree with that theory. I absolutely agree with that theory. They do this to stay safe. Because what kind of things want to eat them? Fish.
So if other things come down, they can just pop underneath them.
Yeah, and so what they'll do is they'll kind of hang out under there, and they'll eat things like, they will eat algae if they can get it, or like dead plants. That's what burrowing mayflies like to eat. Now do you think a burrowing mayfly nymph stays a nymph its whole life?
No.
Do you think it goes through metamorphosis?
Yes.
Do you think it becomes a fly?
No.
It becomes a mayfly, a certain type of fly.
Dragonfly.
Now this is kind of an interesting, this is an interesting thought.
How?
Okay,
Both have 3 tails.
what month do you think,
Wow, that's a
Whoa.
what month do you think the mayfly hatches out? If you want to guess in 3, 2, 1.
May.
Mayfly hatches out of May. How many tails does a mayfly have? Show me with your fingers.
2, 3 fingers.
How many letters are in the word May?
3. And fly.
How many letters are in the word fly? 3. Okay. So this is a trick for remembering that if it has 3 tails, it's a mayfly. Okay. Do mayflies have gills?
Yes.
They have some stylish gills, if you ask me. Check out these gills coming off of their abdomen. Wow.
Cool.
Those really look feathery, right?
They look like cute.
Maybe.
Really feathery. It looks like some
Do they even have a few on their tail?
Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay. Do they have wing pads?
Yes.
Okay. How many legs do they have?
2.
4, 3, 4, 6.
5, 6. Yeah, because they're insects, right? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, when they go through metamorphosis and hatch out as an adult, how many tails do they have?
3.
Okay, and they have wings. And how many legs do they have? 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to assume 5, 6, right? 6 total. Okay, mayflies. How many days do you think a mayfly lives as an adult?
1.
You guess 3? So underneath your fingers, how many days do you think a mayfly lives as an adult? I'm going to tell you the answer.
I knew it! All flies die in one day.
Some do, not all do. But mayflies, as an adult, they can't even eat. They don't even have mouth parts to eat. All they do, what do you think they do?
Fly.
They fly. What else do you think they do in that one day?
Starve.
They die. What else do they do in that day?
Starve. They starve to swim.
Think about our animal life cycle.
Change. Oh, breathe.
They need to breed. So they need to find a mate, they need to make babies, and then they die. One day, my friends. One day. How crazy is that?
That's a hard
Pretty crazy. It's a hard life. Okay, last macro-invertebrate before we talk about what we're gonna do today, our activity, okay? Let's take a look at this.
Whoa.
Whoa, what are we looking at? Who can help me understand what what am I looking at here?
It's a turtle.
So it's called, clap once if you're ready. Clap twice if you're ready. It's called a turtle case caddisfly. So what do the turtle case caddisflies make to live in? They make a little case.
Oh,
What do they make this little case out of?
Shells.
Rocks. Where do they get the rocks?
When I was camping and when I was like swimming in the river, I saw one of those.
No, are you serious?
Yeah, I saw like tiny
The little tube, the rock tube, right?
sometimes like people use them and then like give them tiny little jewels or stuff to make and sell them.
They will, you're right, they'll make a home out of anything that they live around. So if a pine needle falls in the water, will they make a home with that?
Yeah.
If a stick does, a tiny stick,
Yeah.
if a tiny rock does, what if a piece of gold fell in the water? Yeah, they would use it.
Pretty heavy on that.
Yeah, so they'll use anything to make a little tube. But my question is, how do they make those tubes? Do they have a little pack of Elmer's glue and they just glue it together?
It's kind of like a turtle. It pops
They do
his
it with
body
their
in.
arms.
It pops his body in it. Like a turtle.
Similar to a turtle in that they have a protective shell. But they are not born with this case, they have to make it. How do they stick it together? Glue stick?
Water and algae.
These are amazing guesses. Do you know what they actually use? Super sticky spit.
That's what?
They use saliva. You knew it, right? Yeah. So they use their saliva as sticky spit, and they make this little tube. And then what do they do into the tube?
They
They hide in the tube because look at the abdomen of the turtle case caddisfly. The abdomen itself doesn't have an exoskeleton like the stonefly and the mayfly abdomens do. It's actually a soft, squishy abdomen. Would that be really, really, really easy to eat as a predator?
Yes.
Okay, so do they need something to protect them to live in? Okay, so if you're ever at a river and you look around and you see all these weird little rock tubes or tubes made of pine needles and rocks or sticks and rocks, you'll know that that was made by the turtle case caddisfly. Sometimes I've seen them when the caddisfly nymph is in there. Sometimes I've seen them when the nymphs have already gone through metamorphosis and hatched out as
If there wasn't a bucket,
fly.
there, I would take it home.
Yeah, they're really, really cool. You guys want to see the fly?
It'd be gross to see.
Look at that funny fly they turn into. Pretty interesting. Do you think, hang on, clap once if you're ready. Do you think that the caddisfly has to have gills on it? Yeah, do you see the little gills on the abdomen? Okay, and then it's stuck its little case to the rock. What do you think it pops its little head out and eats? Algae. You're absolutely right. Okay, so the turtle case caddisfly, there it is. It hatches out as an adult.
It doesn't hatch out as an adult. It gets eaten
Yeah.
before it builds the shell.
What's that?
It won't turn into the fly if it gets eaten before it builds the shell.
What a good point. And is it important that some of these get eaten?
Yes.
Yeah, or else the world would have way too many of these flies, right? So it's important for the salmon and the other things. There's some birds like the dipper that actually dip into the water and pull them out of the water and eat them. I've seen it happen. It's pretty cool. So there are different predators that eat them. Now, question to you guys. If you were a macro-invertebrate and you lived underwater and you had really, really, really fragile gills and you had to breathe with those fragile gills, would you want to live in clear, fresh water or polluted fresh water?
Clear.
Why would you want to live in clear water?
You gotta breathe.
Yeah, what would happen, all this mucky stuff. So in cities, this happens to our streams. People have cars that leak oil, and that oil washes right into our streams. People sometimes will spill chemicals, and those chemicals will wash right into our streams. When that happens, do you think these little creatures, can live in streams like this?
No.
Okay, so let's take a look at a stream food web for a second. So here's a mayfly, here's a dragonfly. Dragonfly spends its nymph phase in the water as well. If they die, what happens to the frog and the salamander and the fish?
They die.
What happens to the snake? What happens to the bird that eats the fish?
They die.
Okay, so a cool thing about macroinvertebrates that a lot of adults don't know this. The entirety of our stream life depends on our macroinvertebrates staying healthy. Now, the bad news is a lot of our streams are polluted. Are you ready for some good news?
Yeah.
The good news is all you have to do is stop dumping chemicals on the streets so they don't wash into the streams, right? So keep our cities clean. And if you plant native plants, make a little garden, plant around a stream, the plants will actually clean the water. It's an incredible process that happens in nature. And this has happened in Johnson Creek. The salmon were gone from Johnson Creek for a long time because people polluted and the macroinvertebrates died. But guess what happened when we started cleaning it up? First, the macroinvertebrates started coming back. And then guess who came back? The salmon. So we have the power to actually change and make our streams healthy again. And if we do that, our entire food webs will come back. So it's pretty cool stuff, pretty neat stuff. Okay, you guys have done an amazing job listening. Hold those questions and comments a minute because I'm wondering if you're ready to hear about our eco activity we're gonna do today. Are you ready to hear about it? Okay, so here's what's gonna happen. You guys are going to have a little thing called a key to macroinvertebrate life in the river. This macroinvertebrate key is basically a tool that's going to help you solve a mystery. Your mystery comes today in the form of a real macroinvertebrate sample. Inside this glass tube is a real macroinvertebrate.
Is it right?
This macroinvertebrate is not alive anymore. It's been donated to science so that young scientists like yourself can study it. And your job is to use this key to solve the mystery about what is in your tube. Now, I'm going to give you an example. What you're going to do, everyone's going to start up here. And basically, you're always going to go down and you'll have 2 questions to ask yourself. So in this case, I'm going to ask myself, does my macro have 6 legs or 10 or more legs? If it had 10 or more legs, I would know that it's the springtail. But it's not that easy. Mine has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 legs. Okay, so mine has 6 legs. Now what do I ask myself next? Developed wings or wing pads or undeveloped wings. Okay, so developed wings would be like the water strider has wings and the water boatman has wings, right? We know that they have wings. We talked about how they have wings. But here's the deal. We know that things like the stonefly nymph, the mayfly nymph, the caddisfly nymph, and the water penny, eventually they're going to have wings. But do they have, are they developed yet?
No.
No, they're not developed yet. So we also know that they probably have wing pads. So I can make some observations about my little creature. And I'm going to say, oh, I actually can see that mine has wing pads. So I'm going to choose this option, and I'm going to go down here. And then at that point, I'm going to ask myself, does it have no tail, 2 tails, or 3 tails? And based on the picture and based on the observations, I'm going to be able to identify what is in my vial, okay? Once you've identified what's in your vial, then it is your job to make a scientific drawing. Now when wait a second, hang on. I got the freeze, here we go. When I say scientific drawing, am I talking about a little cartoon?
No.
No, I'm not talking about cartoons. I am asking you to look carefully. I am asking you to do your very best. Do you need to draw a professional drawing like a grown-up scientist?
Yeah.
No. The thing that I'm asking you to do is try. You said it. Say it again. Try your best. That's it. Now, if you're like, Betsy, how am I supposed to draw this little creature in this little vial? What you can do?
Okay,
Could you always go back to this paper? Let's just pretend that you got, let's just say, maybe a stonefly. Could you look back at your key? If you're having a hard time seeing it in the little vial, could you just start by drawing a head?
Yes.
Could you then draw a thorax?
Yeah.
Then an abdomen?
Yeah.
And then legs?
Yeah.
And then go back and draw details like gills and wing pads?
Yeah.
So just one step at a time, don't get overwhelmed. The other thing that I want to ask you to do is I want to ask you to fill up this entire space, right? Fill up the space, that's your challenge. What you're going to draw is actually going to be bigger than the creature I'm going to hand to you. So I'm asking you to really try to fill up that space. And then the last thing, you're going to make sure you have your name on it, the name of your macro-invertebrate, and you're going to label the different parts if you're able to do that. And last but certainly not least, please color them if you get a chance. It's just so fun. That's like the best part, right? Is getting to use colors. So the samples that we're handing out, if they are real macro-invertebrates and they are in a glass tube, do you think you have to be pretty careful with them?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a favor? Can you be very, very careful to keep them upright? That means if they're on your desk, you've set them gently. If you're holding them and you need to see the bottom of your macro, are you going to turn it to the side or anything? No, just do like this, guys. Just look like that, okay? Some of them are really small. This actually has a chemical in it that keeps them preserved. So that's what's actually inside of it, okay? We're not going to mess with the caps or anything like that. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Are you ready to get your samples?
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone's going to have a sample. Everyone's going to have a paper to draw on. But you guys are going to share the macro-invertebrate key, and you're not going to draw on the keys. Okay, we're ready. We're ready to go.
Remember to keep these upright.
Try not to knock them over.
Yeah, these are all dead.
Oh, what? No, not that.
Well, you guys can share too.
The colors on the top.
Well, that's what
Oh, I know what that one is.
Don't tell us. Don't tell us.
Oh, I know what this one is. I got this one. I got this one. Wait, is this yours is so mine has to say
Make sure you drop it. Alright, everyone's getting one of these. There's two that can be. Oh, your teacher said she was going up. But my favorite thing
Let me see.
Did you figure out what it is?
Yeah, the same.
We all have the same size big right oxygen underwater. So just like if you walk underwater, then you space like underwater, they can't breathe up. They're still bigger than oxygen in the water. What is this? Actual water can survive. Yeah. So we're down to 2 now.
She has a same one, but a baby one.
Oh, yeah.
A big one.
We gotta decide if it's 2.
Yeah,
It's a hard one to see. What can you see? My next 2. So you're that one. So you're right that way.
Daddy got a base one.
Awesome.
Daddy got a base one.
Oh, nice. Gabriel or Anthony, you're just in space. Good, write it.
That's so really good job with stuff like that. Yeah. 6 legs.
Good job. Now you want to try for us. So start with the head. And then we have kind of got a little.
I got the head and then the top.
I would make it bigger. So a thorax, it goes.
This thing's too fast.
Yeah, it's from there.
I love it.
That was great. Now try again.
I'm done.
You guys.
Your dog's
Yeah.
Here's big.
Whoa! That's a gigantic book. It's this.
Folks, remember to write the name of the invertebrate you got on your papers. So you don't forget. Don't forget your name. I forget my name over there. It's okay. Don't forget, once you get them all drawn, you can draw a line like the head and through. Oh, nice slide. Yeah.
I'm gonna color
They are. Start drawing.